Hi, everyone. I'm Bon Alamagno, Publishing Director with Comic Experience Publishing. Thanks again for joining us for another one of our live streams. I'm here with two really amazing creators to talk about Charlie Spot, a comic that is incredibly hard for me to describe. So maybe Meredith and George, you can describe it better than I can. In the press release that we put out, I put the headline like "Where Chaos and Wonder Collide" is Charlie's Spot. But love to get into some more details and inspirations of it. Love to walk through Meredith, some of your absolutely amazing artwork here. And what's really interesting too is for our variant covers, would love to get into the approach that Meredith you took, where you actually created all new pieces.
Yeah.
Um, like watercolor pieces, and I've got the cover B all lined up to show a little later.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess George, Meredith, can you tell us how did you two meet and start talking about this project? What was the genesis of Charlie Spot?
Well, Meredith and I coming together is truly a comics experience story because it was Andy Schmidt. Andy Schmidt connected us. I count myself very lucky that I got to take Andy's intro to comic book writing course at this point 10 or 11 years ago, the first online course he had ordered from it. And that started my comics journey. So without that class and without Andy, literally 11 years later, we wouldn't be standing here. And when Charlie Spot was coming together, we found ourselves with a story that, the people on the comics experience side really enjoyed and that I was in love with. I was in love with these characters, but we needed an artist. And the timing, if you want to believe in karma or the stars aligning or whatnot, they absolutely aligned, because when we were looking for an artist, Andy had just met Meredith.
Yeah. I like to joke. I met Andy in a portfolio review, and at the time there was like a wasp in the room or a bug, and Andy was like, "Hey, if you can kill that bug, I will give you a job." And I was like, "Okay." I committed murder.
You killed for comics.
Shortly after, I was connected with George, and yeah.
So how did you even start talking about this to each other? Can you walk me through what was the inspiration for it, and what started happening when you started thinking about who these characters are, and how that turned into a story?
Sure, I'll try and long story short it. So I commuted into Boston for 10 years, into downtown Boston. And my journey would take me through, the streets and all that stuff. And I noticed after 10 years of doing this, that there were certain people who were always in the same, for lack of a better word, panhandling spot. Summer, fall, winter, spring, they were there every day. And after a while, when I started clocking it, the creator writer brain took over. It's like, what are the rules that these people are always get the same spot? Like, there has to be some sort of unwritten code that we don't know about, but is incredibly important to this community. And that just kind of started the what if scenario. And from there, you just start thinking about, well, who would these characters be who have, this spot, it's theirs, and it's vitally important to them. And that was the beginning of who Charlie Scott, our main character, in who he was. As I was putting him together, as I was kicking this around, my wife and I were watching a lot of TV shows and movies, and the veteran with PTSD going crazy and shooting things up. Like, we ran into that a lot in a very short period of time. I have veterans in my family. I have them in my friend circle. And yes, they have things that they have seen and that they are processing. They are nowhere near this trope that I kept seeing over and over again. And I really thought it was becoming harmful. that, you know, the idea that anybody who has gone through something like this and is working through it is automatically one step away from shooting up the bank. It got really frustrating because I know that there's more to these stories. They're quieter struggles that they're working on. And so I wanted to take that trope of the homeless veteran, but give it a lot more depth and 360 than I'd been seeing at that moment. So it felt like an easy way in to then expand once somebody starts coming across the story and learning about Charlie. And from then it just, you know, like any good story, well, who's this guy, who's around this guy, who's helping him, who's working against him, and why would this spot be so important to Charlie that, you know, we could get 80 pages of a comic out of. And the more I started thinking about this guy and his story, the more I fell in love with him. It was absolutely one of those stories that the more you think about it, the more you fall in love with it. And then for me, there's always a tipping point I look forward to, which is okay, if I don't get this made, if I don't get to tell this story, I'm going to be very, very upset. And so I started putting together what a pitch might look like. And, you know, again, just to cut it off there and not give away too much, it became this kind of like big comic booky world where I wanted some heartfelt moments wrapped in some quality comic book storytelling. I keep referencing Terry Moore's Strangers in Paradise and Motor Girl, or even Scotty Young's I Hate Fairyland. These, you know, these are comics that have big kind of like bizarre over the top comic book moments. And then you flip the page and they're saying the most humane, gut punching things and revelations that ground it immediately. And that was kind of what I wanted to try with this book. So that's what went into the pitch deck that Andy had shared with Meredith. And so I'll take that as a super smooth segue into what about the story hooked Meredith.
So when I first got like the synopsis of this story, like it was very gut punching. And I don't want to like spoil anything, but Charlie's adventure, and when you find out kind of his reasonings for why he stays in the same space all the time, hit home with me. My father is a veteran as well, and so like I saw a lot of my dad in this character, and I was like, well, obviously, like I have to draw this book. Like I have a relationship with my father that is sometimes good and sometimes bad, but he's someone that I really admire. And if this is kind of a way for me to interject a little bit of that character into Charlie, like like I love this. This is so good. So yeah, I think it was like a little bit of like a miraculous happenstance that this plot was put in front of me.
And Meredith, could you talk a little bit about in terms of like designing the characters, designing the world? And I've got some preview pages that are not spoilery, hopefully.
Yeah.
But I guess could you talk about like some of the artistic choices you made as you were figuring out, you know, what does Charlie look like? Is he inspired by someone in your life? And just how all these characters interact with each other, and just like your even like your acting, like the way that you're bringing them to life. I would just love to know like some of your thought process here.
Yeah. Well, Charlie's definitely inspired by my father, specifically a very distinct photo of my father that my sisters and I have, where my dad is wearing this hat. And I saw that picture and I was like, Charlie needs to have a hat, and he needs to always wear his hat and never take it off. And that should be like his thing. And I guess some of the color palettes for Charlie as well, like my dad's from Tennessee and he used to be a big Vols fan, and their color is orange. So I was like, we got to put some orange in there. And then the colorist Allie did a really great job of just kind of like melding that palette across everybody and kind of unifying that. I would also say that like every character in here is like inspired by someone that I know, and a friend of mine, like that clown in the last page who's like fighting the bear, that's based off of someone I dated. There's one character that looks like me. I have one of the buskers in a later issue I based off of my roommate, and he's got a little sign that says, "I'm addicted to cheese." Like, I just wanted to kind of put as much of the people that I knew into this world as possible.
Yeah, and so like something has happened where there's a disruption basically at Charlie's spot, and all these different, I won't say forces, but all these different people are converging there, and there's almost like a mystery to it. It's still like, why is this happening? But like all sorts of different kinds of buskers and people going through the park and whoever, like when did, almost like a universe of characters all converging into this one place. Was that the idea from the beginning, or how did you two arrive there?
That was always in there, and it was taken from, again, my experience from like, from 9 to 5, I was part of this world, again, right outside of Boston Common, which isn't as big as Central Park, but it's essentially our Central Park in Boston. But at 6 o'clock, I'm back into the suburbs, but that doesn't mean that, downtown Boston still isn't, alive and have energy and stories going on around it. So I just wanted to, take that idea and just kind of blow it up. I also wanted to, Charlie was always going to be very grounded. So, if we're going to have a grounded central character, you got to surround him with a bunch of chaos so we can see him reacting to the chaos, whether it's the chaos of the situation, the universe, or, the guy in a bear suit around him. It felt like that would be fun. I'm a fan of taking regular people and throwing them in ridiculous situations and seeing what happens next. And so that was kind of the genesis of the world that we built around Charlie. And then, if I'm smart about anything, it's giving Meredith the slightest bit of information and then just getting out of her way.
And I love these watercolor covers that you did for cover B, and it's one of those things where we're trying to do variants that almost don't feel like variants, where it's like it's almost telling like another part of the story. And let me see if I can zoom in here a little bit. But like you folks, even like Meredith, you even took like our corner box and put like made it like a sticker on the wall, and the credits and the issue numbering is sort of like this like the descriptor for the art. I guess what was the thinking behind this? And I think you've got 3 more portraits, and they're all going to feel like they can be connected and hanging off of the same wall. Mm-hmm. Can you kind of talk about like the process of how you even came up with this idea?
Yeah. So one of the first things that was told to me was like, we don't want this to look like a cover. Like, we want this to look just as unique and like something that like you could pick it up and not really know like really what it's trying to advertise, I guess. Or just like a design that is very off the wall from what a traditional cover is. At the time, I mean, it was, we're still in a pandemic, but, things were opening up again. And one of the first things that my partner and I decided to go out and do was we went to a very small art gallery that was just like some local artists that he was friends of. And it was very small, like everything was just like strung up on like cord on a wall, and like there was like little sale stickers, and it was sketches, and like just all this like really great kind of humbling artwork. It was like so refreshing to see after a year of being stuck in my house. And that's kind of when it hit me. I was like, well, Charlie, as part of his PTSD, is he paints, and that's what he does when he's in the park, and he sells his paintings. And that's something that I kind of wish I had woven in more into the story, at least like in terms of the artwork. So I decided that these variant covers would actually be paintings that Charlie had done. So like this first one would be a self-portrait. And like I kind of wanted it to reflect how Charlie might feel about himself. So, you know, it's like kind of wishful, but he also kind of feels like maybe he's kind of a bit of a weed too. So he's got the dandelion coming out of where that little pom-pom would be on his hat. There's coffee stains on it because I feel like he would not really feel so protective of a self-portrait. Like, you know, it's a little discardable, I guess, to him. But each cover kind of focuses on a different character, or kind of like a different sense of the adventure that's happening in that book. I don't know, I thought that was a way for me to kind of make it feel as if Charlie had made the cover rather than, you know, me.
No, absolutely. And it's like not to spoil it, but the subjects of the other covers, I mean, what's interesting is again seeing all of them through Charlie's eyes too. So it's like you can read the comic and sort of have this omniscient viewpoint, but then also like these covers provide Charlie's viewpoint, and you get to know more not just about Charlie, but how he interacts with all these other characters.
Yeah, and I definitely wanted, like, I'm not really a painter, so like working in this kind of media is very new for me, and so I was kind of putting myself in the mindset of like I'm going to experiment and just like make some art. And I feel like when you're doing art therapy, that is kind of, it's about self-expression and experimenting and like not worrying about, you know, the outcome. And so I think each one varies a lot in terms of like the style, and I use different medium and, you know, played around, and I don't know, I enjoy them. It was a lot of fun.
No, that's great. That's great. And I'm completely shocked that you're saying that you're new to this, because I look at this and I'm like, yeah, this is like top level work that I'm seeing here. And I'm like completely thrilled that it's one of our covers. I'd love to figure out some way, I need to talk to Andy about this and the rest of the crew, but I'd love to figure out some way maybe to even like have like another version of this where we're even closer to the cover, or maybe have it be like full bleed. So people can really like feel like they're owning the print itself almost. I guess what should readers expect from reading this, and like where it takes them?
The hope is that the emotions and the reasoning and the lives feel honest and true. That, you know, even if there is a guy, you know, even if a guy with inflatable swords in a clown costume is fighting a bear, like it actually makes sense. That the over the topness feeds the humanity of all of this. Sorry, that got very existential. To the reader, what we want to give you is a fun read that can make you laugh and smile on one page and make it feel like it was written explicitly for you on the next page. And man, just listening to Meredith talk about that cover, let me tell you, as the person who got to experience 80 pages of her artwork, that thought went into every page and every panel. It's beautiful. Meredith, what I loved about Meredith's artwork and then showed up in this book is this book is kind of like, there's a bit of a fine line where it is human, but we wanted to have some comic book over the topness. Meredith's characters feel real with just enough of that exaggeration that we can pull off some of the stuff that we do, some of the more magical stuff that we do. And then, you know, Ali Pepitone adding her colors on top of this, and, you know, bringing in an expert and a veteran like Taylor Esposito to letter it. I truly believe this book hit its ceiling. Everybody brought their A game, worked their asses off to make this as beautiful a book to look at and as good a read to take in. That was my short version.
No, I mean, like it feels, I can feel it when I read through the book. It like really feels like you two and the team put your heart and soul into this. I think it's a challenging read in all the best possible ways. Unusual, I think, in for a lot of comic book readers. But again, all in all the right ways. Yeah. So
what I feel lucky about, and why, you put stuff out and you hope it resonates with people. I've been lucky enough to share this with some people, and I've gotten more than one person. And Meredith, I don't know if you've had the same. I've had more than one person tell me you made me cry in the best way possible. And that's exactly what we wanted to do. To, again, make you laugh, give you something enjoyable that would hit you maybe in unexpected ways. To go back to another Scotty Young book, Middle West, recently was one of those books where just, it's this big over the top story. And every now and then Scotty and Jorge, I believe, would put a page together that would just stop me dead in the tracks. And just, it was beautiful and it was heart wrenching. And it made for an absolutely wonderful read. And that's what we were going for, and again, Meredith bringing everything that she brought to it, Allie and Taylor. I'm incredibly proud of this book. And
I was saying this before we started, but I'm very pleased and honored to be part of helping in some small way bring this to shops. So
I will try and do the pitch, right? Because that's like the one thing we haven't done yet. Mm-hmm. And I just spent a weekend at a convention, so I'm working on tightening stuff. All right. So if you want to know what Charlie Spot is, after a homeless veteran suffers a heart attack, he returns to his panhandling spot to find that it's become the epicenter of a turf war between rival city busking groups. The only way he can secure his spot again is to go through an increasingly bizarre adventure through his city and the evil suburbs to get his spot back, because if he can't, he will lose the most important part of his life.
I feel that. But yeah, I can't wait to put this in the hands of readers and stores. And speaking of which, just want to do some plugs for folks who want to order Charlie Spot through Diamond Comics and their comic book shop. The order codes are right on the screen. You could also go to cexpublishing.com for those codes. And while you're at cexpublishing.com as well, if you want to, you can order directly from us. We'll ship it to you directly from our own fulfillment with Oxeye Media. And here's also a short code as well that you can share on social media, your emails, wherever you want, to also encourage other people to support the book. So if and also please make sure to get your orders in to retailers by August 26th, if not much earlier, so that maybe by new comic book day tomorrow, if you can, please.
That'd be incredibly helpful.
Yeah,
and I mean, I'll put another plug in there for the variant covers. Meredith shared what all four would look like together, and I cannot wait to shadow box them in real life. I already have a plan. I already scouted Michael's. I know what I'm doing. I will send pictures of that. But the variant covers, again, just they're beautiful. And I'm going to talk like she's not here, but Meredith is incredibly talented. And what I love about these covers is you get to see another aspect of her artistic talent. And I just, they're beautiful and so thoughtfully well done. I feel incredibly privileged that, I get to have my name next to hers on these books, and I can't wait to see them on shelves.
Thank you.
You
I'm
rock.
excited to get all 4 of them and then put them on clotheslines so that there's a clothesline on a clothesline.
Charlie Spotception.
Yeah. Take
And
a
you
photo
know,
of that.
it's going back to what we were talking about. I think there's something really neat that this whole process did start 11 years ago with me meeting Andy at New York Comic Con and taking his class, and now getting that was a new venture for him, going online. And now Comics Experience Publishing, I'm incredibly honored that I get to be one of the titles, along with Meredith, Allie, and Taylor, that we get to be a part of this next new venture of his, with a book, like I said, that good Lord, 2.5 years, something like that. Like I could find the email where Andy introduced Meredith and I, but this has been a labor of love for a while. If you can just imagine what the last 2.5 years have been.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thrilled to get it out there. I'm thrilled to introduce people to Meredith and Allie. Although, Meredith already has, one killer graphic novel under her belt with Joe Illidge, MPLS Sound. Like, please go check that out. But yeah, to have a book that I'm in love with creators, I'm just so floored to be working with, with a guy that helped get me started, in his new venture. It's a wonderful little kismic cosmic moment. Sure, those are words.
Meredith, is there anything that you want to plug also, with any of your latest books or anything like that?
So like George said, I released a book with Joe Illidge and Hannibal Taboo earlier this year called MPLS Sound. It's a humanoids book. It's pretty good. And, it's really good. I'm working on another graphic novel right now. I don't think I'm allowed to talk about it, but as soon as I can, I definitely will. But yeah,
Those are the best projects.
Secrets. I'm really looking forward to seeing Charlie Spot in my hand. I'm doing a artist in residency at a local comic book shop right when it comes out. So if you're in the Savannah area and you want me to sign it, I'll be there.
What's the store?
It's called Neighborhood Comics. They're a great store in Savannah, Georgia. And if you're ever in the area, go there because they're wonderful. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Absolutely awesome. Thank you to you both for not just your time here, but also for producing such a really great, heartfelt book. Again, cannot wait to get this in people's hands. Going to be available in comic shops, also going to be available in digital on Comixology and through cxpublishing.com. Thanks everyone for joining us, and catch you all later.
Thank you.
Thank you.